I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In compliance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 at secret, the meeting, is taking place. Special meeting being called by Chairman Joseph Infante.
Please call roll in.
Chairman Infante.
Here.
Vice Chair Humphrey.
Here.
Commissioner Lukenda. Here. Commissioner Motlos.
Here.
Commissioner Orlean.
Yes.
Commissioner Petkoff. Yes. And Commissioner Mendoza.
Here.
Okay, the first
Thank
order.
you. Thank you, Ann. Ann, I just want to go over, is Jerry here, Joe? The QPA?
Yes, I am.
Oh, thank
Yes,
you.
I am.
I don't know if he's going to be really busy and has to get off, so I'm going to let him give his report from the last meeting that we had. We had told him that we would ask him to review some of the documents and give a report at the next meeting. So, Jerry, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I'd like to give an interim report of where we are. I'd like to thank Peter Polcari for his assistance in getting the information, some of the information that I required from the office. So Peter, thank you for assisting in that regard. While Peter submitted to me the couple of years of data that he was able to get from Gary's office and computer and the materials, he sent me an interesting email which included additional procurement related files that apparently do exist that I've been asking for since I've arrived several months ago. So I need access to those files. I would like to have those files so that I could complete my review, and the work that I am doing in connection with the look back period and the various disbursements and whether or not they were procured properly or not is ongoing. I am going through them. I have several questions. I've had one discussion already with a few people, and hopefully I'll be able to get more information and give a better report with more details to the board once I get there. I need to let the board know that I've had to work significantly more than 7 hours a month, and based upon the agreement that you have entered into with me, the work and the scope of work has greatly exceeded my expectations and my understanding of what was going to be needed here. I've had to undertake efforts to secure existing files, review disbursement records, identify vendors, reconstruct some files. I've been coming to your board meetings. I should be involved in the initiation of new procurements if there are any. And I've been seeking records, as you guys have and ladies know, since January of 2023. Here we are in July, and it took 6 months and a resolution of the board to get me some of the records. So I'm now told that there are additional procurement records that exist in the director's office. And if they're there, I'd like to have access to them and have them provided to me. So where we are on an interim report basis.
Thank you, Jeff. And we have the rest of those records ready to go.
Hold on 1 minute, okay? Let me clarify this. Jerry received a note from Pete Polcari telling him The records were available to him at the Housing Authority. They cannot leave the Housing Authority per HUD. HUD said all purchasing records should be here, not in Jerry's office, okay? That's number one. Number two, he never bothered to answer, except he gave a scathing email, making believe we are not working with him. He's not working with us. He's the one was told, whatever you need, ask for it and you will get it. He never asked for any of that stuff, and he's going on like a maniac now.
Okay, all right. Let's not name call here today. So let's just do this. Jerry, are you available to stop down and get those records?
I have asked for the records in writing repeatedly since January of this year. I've been told that they were provided to me. We now find out in an email that I get last week that there are new records that are available. Am I available to come? Absolutely. Could I take copies of them? Of course. Should they be scanned and emailed to me? Of course. They gave me original files that they obtained from Anne Marie Whalen, which I inventoried, which were in total disarray and incomplete and lacking HUD compliant material. So I don't know what I'm going to see or what I'm going to find. And I am being cooperative and I'm working every way possible.
Let him finish, Ann. Are you no,
I just wanted to finish by saying that, listen, I'm here to work with everybody. I'm here to assist and help. And that's all I want to do. And if I can get the records and review the records, it will be great. And if I can't, then I can't give you an opinion on this stuff. It's simple.
Have you been in, look at the records?
You want to comment, Ann?
Can we just maybe, Ann, can Mr. Volpe get a copy of them? Originals remain in the Housing Authority. I don't know if that's a solution to this situation.
No, because we're not going to spend our time with all this nonsense. They are here. If he wants to come and look at them, he can look at them. He cannot take them. Period. Case closed.
And he'll come down there. That's what I'm hearing from Jerry. He has no problem coming down there. But the box of records, the first time, somebody from the agency did give him them to take, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so you're saying they're not supposed to.
Hold on. Kathy wants to talk to you.
When he came in January, he asked Ann if he could take the box, and Ann obliged and said yes. And when he was handed the box, I reminded him that, as what Anne Marie spoke about, was that was the residual stuff that she had in her office. I also reminded him that that's not entire files. If there was anything specific he needs, to let me know. I'm not a QPA. I don't know what he's looking for. I can only give him what specific files he's looking for. If he's got projects in mind for the project, then I'll give him the file.
That's fine. Now whatever project it is, we're not going to be specific. We're just going to give him everything. My point was that when you gave him that box back in January, and saying they're not supposed to leave, but you let them leave in January, but you don't want to let them leave now. That's my point.
HUD has told me that those files are to be here, not in his office, in my office.
Okay. So between.
But in usual fashion, he takes it out the door and does something different.
So between January and today, HUD told you that we can't let the box go out.
They said nothing about a box. They said none of our personnel files
Okay,
should be in anybody's office except his office.
Okay, so we didn't know that before. Okay, that's fine.
Can I say something? Can I say something?
No, wait a minute, Commissioner Arlene. Wait a second. This is not going to go back and forth. And the second thing I want to say is Peter Polcari gave him. Peter's our fee account. Peter's does nothing to do with purchasing. So why he's involved in it, I have no idea. But from now on, we need an employee of the Housing Authority to make sure that the records are maintained properly and that they're getting to the proper person. If they're not supposed to leave as per HUD, then they shouldn't have left the first time, okay? And they won't leave this time. So if we have to make copies for whatever he needs once he's down there and he sees something, we'll make copies in the office and give them to him. It can be very simple this time.
Copies are taking the records.
No, Ann meant take the records out of the facility originals. We're allowed to give copies out.
Right. Let me just be clear. We're not talking, everyone, please. Okay. These are procurement records, not personnel. Just so everybody knows, it's procurement, not personnel. I don't want anybody to talk over each other. I don't know if that helps anybody.
That's what I wanted to say. Because
Right.
she said
Procurement is public
personnel.
record. Procurement is public record, and
record.
Mr. Volpe's talking about procurement. I don't know if that helps anybody.
That's what I wanted to say. I wanted to say, did HUD say you cannot take
we know that.
procurement records or the personnel? Which one did HUD say to you? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Procurement records belong in our place, not in the QPA's place.
In reality,
So
both.
can I give a point of
Wait,
clarification?
one person at a time, guys. One person at a time. Go ahead, Ann.
Sorry.
I just said my piece.
Okay,
I
Joe, go
said
ahead.
it belongs here. It does not belong in a QPA's office.
Original procurement records under HUD regulations, as the Director Ferguson just indicated, remain at the Housing Authority. Copies of materials can be provided to the QPA. The majority of procurement records are public anyway, under Open Public Records Act.
And this is Jerry, and I have requested copies of records. I was provided with original records, and I will be happy to return them. I have inventoried them. I circulated the memo of what the inventory was. They were in disarray. They were put back in the exact same order in which they were inventoried. Total disarray. As to the new records, and what Kathy and Ann keep saying repeatedly is all he's got to do is ask, how many times do I have to ask? The email and the detailed letter with all of the specific items was outlined in my original letter to Anne Marie Whalen, copied to Ann, copied to Kathy, forwarded on several occasions, and I still have not received that information.
Jerry,
in the beginning, you asked for 2 years, and now all of a sudden you're asking for 3 years. There's a little bit of confusion, I think you would understand. So
there's no confusion. The letter speaks for itself. It inventories all of the items. It's very specific. You're confusing the issue. There's two different issues. One of the issues is the procurement compliance issues that I have outlined in my letter to Anne Marie Whalen 6 months ago. And then the board asked me, as a result of other issues that have come up, for records, and that's what generated the 2-year and the 3-year. They're two different things. So let's be very candid with the board and make sure that we're explaining properly and not attempting to mislead or to give the false image that something else is going on here. They're two separate things. Listen, at the end of the day, board, I work for you, right? If they don't want to provide me with the information, don't provide it to me. It's fine. And I can't give you a report. It's plain and simple.
Jerry, how dare you say that? We've opened this door, you've been nothing but courteous to you.
One at a time.
Something, you leave this place and you change the story. Peter sent you an email with a nice comprehensive list and asked you if you want to come down and see the files, we have them in the back room for you, waiting for you. But instead, you turned around and sent back a scathing email with more accusations. Instead of giving us a date. You want to come see these files or not? They've been here for 2 weeks.
Okay. So the thing I'm getting out of this, that we have the files. So what we're going to do, Ann, I'll talk to the QPA. I'll talk to you, Ann. We'll pick a time and date, and we'll make sure the files are available at the time he can come in, and we'll go from there. So everything should be okay now. Is that okay with you, Ann?
I have no problem with that, but I'm not going to make copies of anything.
Okay, you don't have to make copies. We have a lot of people there who can make copies. Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else, Joe, our attorney?
Wait a minute. Commissioner Lukenda's been trying to say something.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't know that. Commissioner Lukenda?
Yes. Jerry, how many times have you been in the Housing Authority to look for these records? You know,
I don't go in to look at records. I ask for.
I'm finished. Excuse me. How many times have you been in the Housing Authority and asking for the records personally that they're here that you could look at instead of all these emails back and forth? Have you been in?
Can I answer the question?
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't come into the office to ask for records. That's not how it works. I sent a letter requesting a laundry list of items. It was sent as an attachment to an email, and there have been various emails to that extent. I have visited the Housing Authority on a handful of occasions, and those few occasions that I have gone in there, I was to pick up records, to attend a board meeting or two. I don't remember how many. I have to go back and look. And I've done nothing in terms of having files given to me to look at. I've asked for files. I learned for the first time last week when Peter wrote in an email, by the way, I went through the files that exist for procurement behind Ann's desk and would be happy to get you whatever you need. And I'm like, wow, that's great. So there's files there. So how about we get all of the files that I've been asking for since January? It's only 6 months that have passed.
Come in and get them.
All right. Anything else, Commissioner Lukenda?
No, he should come in and get them.
Okay. Wait, no, he's going to now. We just said that. Okay.
I'll be happy to, but nobody's
Yeah.
told me to do that.
Can I
All
say
right, so-
something? Can I say
You were
something?
given that right
No,
by
no,
political variance.
Chairman, point of order. Chairman, point of order, please. This
Yes,
is outright. This-
one
the-
at
the
a time.
behavior- Chairman, this is Commissioner Manuzza. This is getting out of control, one at a time. I also like to request that the commissioners be provided the email chain back and forth so we can see the nonsense going on.
Can I say something? Can I say something?
Commissioner Arlene, go ahead.
Say something. Okay. We are the board. We directed the Housing Authority to provide this information to the procurement documentation to what's his name? Jerry. Okay? We asked, the board asked. So now I'm learning from when we asked for over 6 months ago, he has not been provided the information that he needed. So it seems like to me, as in looking back, listening to the back and forth, is that there is like no one really wants him to get the information. Just make a copy of the information that he needs so he can do the job that we are paying him for. The fact that it's taken 6 months, it's a waste of taxpayers' money. It's a waste, and this back and forth, it's a waste of taxpayers' money. The board directed the Housing Authority to do something.
Let him come in and get the
They
records.
should do it. And to say that you're gonna go against the board and say you're not gonna provide him the documentation, because we told you to make copies. The board says, give him the documentation. Either you can make copies. If you don't want him to take it with the originals with you, make the copies and give it to him and stop this nonsense back and forth. 6 months, that's a waste of
Let
taxpayers'
him come
money.
in and do it.
That's
Okay.
no, that's not how it works. Let's be professionals. Let's be professionals here. That's not, you cannot tell, let him get it. That's unprofessional.
Let him come in and get it.
The board has directed
The
the
board is not
Housing
gonna do it.
Authority to provide him with the documents. So
Okay,
make
Commissioner Arlene.
copies and give it to him.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Arlene. Thank you, Commissioner Lukenda. I think we're at the end of this discussion with this topic. I'll talk to Ann tomorrow. We'll come up with a date and time, and we'll take care of this now that we know it's all records, no specifics, and they're there in the office available. Thank you. Joe, do you have anything to say?
Oh, Chairman.
Excuse me, you have to go to personnel matters now.
Okay, I know, I wasn't going to the committee. I thought I heard Joe's voice before. Okay, personnel matters. The executive director's contract. I just like to say during the last meeting, we had a vote on a budget. It basically was a split vote. We had some yeses, we had some noes, we had some abstains. Okay, but from listening to our commissioners, everybody was very concerned. The accountant was very concerned. I worked on the budget with him a long time. It was made clear that we have a deficit. We need donations just to pay the salaries. Tonight, we're here to discuss the executive director's contract, not to whether we're going to give her a new contract, not whether we're going to give a raise, nothing like that. All I'm trying to do is in the contract, I don't know how many of you read the contract. It says in the
No, I didn't
contract,
get it.
okay, we'll make sure everybody
I
gets
did
it.
not have a
But
copy of the contract.
who's that?
Karen.
Karen, well, you voted on it last time, so I don't know how you didn't get it, but that's okay. We'll address that later. Okay, you're in the office now. You could get it before you leave today. It's readily available. So the end date for the contract is approaching. The contract has an automatic renewal in it unless the housing authority provides written notice that it will not renew. Very simply, in light of the housing authority's financial condition, I think the prudent course of action is not to renew it at the current terms and conditions at this time. Not saying we don't say, hey, in a week or a month when we actually discuss it, to say, hey, give the exact same contract or give a raise. I'm not saying that. But right now, I think it's our fiduciary responsibility to say, hey, okay, we got to look at everything and check everything. So because there's that automatic renewal in there, and we have to give notice to the executive director from the housing authority 60 days, I believe, in advance, that's why I'm bringing it up today.
Okay, so I make a motion, notifying the executive director that the current contract is not to be automatically renewed.
We need a second. I'll
Second.
second it.
Okay, you-
You need to vote.
Monday.
Okay.
Can we call the vote?
Before
Is there
I
any
vote,
discussion on it?
Yes, I have a discussion.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, I think this is too important of an issue just to come and vote on it, yes or no. I think, does she have a new contract that we could offer?
No, we're going to have to discuss that, but like I just said, if you were listening, we have to discuss that at another time. But right now, time's running out for us, okay? And at the meeting, we did discuss that back in June. The commissioner said, hey, we want to wait until it gets to the end of the contract, okay? And the board members from the previous contract said, hey, we want to wait for the 18 months, and Ann said she was fine with that. Okay, now we're at that moment. We do have to sit down and discuss it, Commissioner Lukenda, but we have to at least give her notice. Otherwise, it automatically renews, and then the housing authority has to pay the exact same terms and conditions out. And we don't
Can I
have the
say
money,
something?
as you were there
Can I
last
say
meeting.
Can I say something?
Oh, no, let Commissioner Lukenda finish.
Okay.
Let Commissioner Lukenda finish.
What happened with that contract that, Mr. Manfredi was writing up, I guess, last year?
Mm-hmm.
Where is that contract? I mean,
We
we're gonna
didn't-
say,
We have a contract. I guess he has it. I wasn't on the board then. You were on the board, so I don't know what you guys did with it. I wasn't there. Okay, if you want to look at that contract again, you can look at that contract again, and you could decide if you would like to make a motion or you'd like a discussion, Commissioner Lukenda, to say, hey, I like this one better than the other one, or I want to revert back to the other one, or I want to make my own changes. You have that right.
okay. When they
So-
talked about the contract that was given in April 2022.
Hmm.
All right, and the letter
Right.
to the commissioner says it was an extension to September 30th, 2028. It was
Right.
not.
Right. We went over that in the June meeting. You were there, I believe. So what you're asking now, what? Why it wasn't, it's not valid? Is that what you're asking, Commissioner Lukenda?
Could be.
What's
What
that?
happened with that extension?
That contract, because HUD law, and Joe, do you want to explain it? I don't want to, I'm not the attorney.
The meeting.
What's that, Commissioner Lukenda?
Let Joe talk.
Go ahead, Joe.
So in April of 2022, a resolution was passed by the board to provide an extension to 2028. No contract was before the board at that time. In the intervening time between April of 2022 and June of 2022, I prepared a new contract together with Mr. Polcari's assistance on the financial side, which we reviewed with Ms. Ferguson. And if I recall correctly, at the time, she found it acceptable. The June meeting occurred and the board deliberated in closed session. I presented a legal opinion on that. And I don't want to get too far into the legal opinion because we're in public session. And it was ruled by the board at that time to hold that contract and wait until the conclusion of the current contracts. So I still have that contract, Commissioner Lukenda, if anyone needs it.
Yes, I
But the
would
board
like
did
to
determine
see
not to
that.
proceed at that time with that contract. They did, the ruling of the board at that point, the resolution, excuse me, the board at that point was to hold until the conclusion of current contracts.
I talk now?
I think this is really, I think we need to discuss this more.
What can
Well,
I just?
again, Commissioner Lukenda, I don't know what, I can't explain it more. We have to discuss it because we're not giving her a contract today. We're not, and because nobody has seen it, but we have to
I
at
think
least,
we have to vote on that, don't we?
we have to vote what?
I can help clarify if it helps. You have a current, Commissioner, tell me if I'm answering your question. We have a current contract in effect, obviously through the end of September. And so
Correct.
that is in effect, it will automatically renew unless 60 days prior board gives the director notice. So I believe if I'm hearing the chairman correctly, that's what's before the board. I guess, tell me if I'm hearing this correctly. Part two would be then potentially talking to the director, maybe using the contract that I had drafted last year, or discussing potential new contract or where to go from here. But if you take no action before July of this year, the former contract will automatically renew. And based on Mr. Bulgari and I's work last year, some of the concerns there were related to the fact that HUD rules have changed and HUD salaries have changed. Again, I don't want to go too far into the weeds on that because that's not what's before you now, but just to give you the framework of what occurred.
A motion is on the floor. We need to take the vote.
Can I just say
hold
something?
on.
I'm
Wait, hold on, Commissioner Lukenda, let her finish. Commissioner Lukenda, go ahead.
Yes.
I mean,
You know, we knew that coming to the table, why didn't we have the old contract here so we can move it forward instead of not renewing this contract and having no contract and to work on it? That
Well,
doesn't
this
can I
really.
just say something?
But let me, please, Commissioners,
Hold
let
on,
me
let the
answer.
attorney talk, Commissioner Orlean.
Commissioner Kent has a
You
question.
know
I
what?
need to answer
If
it.
I get interrupted, I feel like I'm bullied.
No. Yeah.
Go ahead,
Allow me to
Commissioner
speak,
Lukenda.
I
please.
feel like I'm bullied.
Chair, may I answer Commissioner
Yes,
Kenda's
go ahead.
question?
I'm holding off everybody.
Right. So Commissioner Kenda, the notice under this contract is not terminated. It keeps it in effect through the end of September. So there, it does
Correct.
not cancel it. What it does is just say that this particular contract had an auto renewal provision. You can think of it that way, that states if the board takes no action, it automatically renews. So if I'm hearing the motion correctly before the board, it's to give notice so this contract will not auto renew at the end of September. That keeps it in effect. It does not terminate it. And it does allow the board to now in the end of the contract, to redress the issue, come up with a new contract, take the contract from last time, or take any action on a new contract. Is that helpful? I'm
Yes,
talking about
thank you.
just the procedure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Please, any other comments?
Any more
What
discussion?
can I just say something?
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Orlean.
Well, all I'm saying is that as a board, we have a responsibility because at the last meeting, we found out that the Linden Housing Authority has a huge deficit of over $1 million and more than $1 million and cannot pay its bills. So what they are doing, they are borrowing from the nonprofit organization. Oh, they are charging the nonprofit organization over $1 million. So there's a problem here. We have an obligation, to the taxpayers of our town, to the taxpayers of the country, to make sure that we do our due diligence, to make sure that the tax dollars are being spent, and we have to make sure that we are following HUD guidelines. So that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner.
That's all I needed to
Can I
say.
say,
Thank you.
Another.
Joe?
Yes,
Joe, this is Joanne.
Yes,
just wanna
Joanne.
make it, what we're doing tonight is we're just not gonna discuss a contract.
That's the bottom line. We're just saying that we're not discussing a contract tonight, but that's not saying that we're not gonna discuss it at a later time. Is that what this is all about, right?
Exactly. There's, like the attorney said, there's an automatic renewal. So it would be, to me, I feel it's irresponsible if we let it just automatically renew in light of the budget. Okay. I spoke with Peter Polcari on this at length. Okay. So all I'm doing is doing what I think everybody should do or want to do. Okay. Because we're responsible, and say, hey, then we have time we have several months to discuss it and sit down with the executive director to see what her plan is, what she's looking for, and we could come in a meeting of the minds. I know from talking to the attorney and the accountant that they worked on a new contract with her, okay? Now that the board should be involved with it and we come to a consensus. That's all I'm saying. So that's where we're at now. Not saying that there's no contract to be had here, but that we're simply discussing the automatic renewal topic. That's it.
Yes, can we take the vote? The motion is on the table.
No, I'm not
Hold on,
finished.
go ahead. Commissioner Lukenda, go ahead.
How did we get in such a deficit?
Ask Ann.
And how did we get in such a deficit?
And you
All
were,
I know, you're asking me, Commissioner Lukenda, you're asking me, okay, and you were at the budget meeting, plus I'm on the board a year. You've been on the board 6 years. You've passed the budget, I'm assuming, every year, and you're asking me. I should be asking you.
I think it was with that building that we kept putting it off and putting it off.
It has nothing to do with that. Ask the accountant that's sitting next to you if that had to do with it.
The Housing Authority gave no money to the nonprofit. The Housing Authority does not give money to the Linden Housing Corporation.
Okay.
All right, Peter's going to explain the deficit.
So I think that the term deficit is being used incorrectly. What has happened at the Housing Authority in the past is that the salaries were split among the 3 buildings. Between the rent that was collected and the subsidies that we received, the Housing Authority and the 2 buildings were able to pay all of the salaries and all of the expenses that they incurred. The situation was such that things were allocated to the nonprofits based on percentages, and the nonprofits agreed to use those percentages to pay the Housing Authority. What we did with this budget for the coming year, September of '24, at the board's direction, they indicated that they would like to see something better as far as whose salaries are allocated to which program. I went ahead with a lot of discussion between Joe and the chairman and myself to try to put the salaries where they were most used by the people who were earning those salaries. When you do that, it shows that the Section 8 program would be short by about $170,000. Based on the money that Section 8 program has had and has in reserves, the Section 8 program is able to fund those salaries. So there is not truly a deficit. I think the reason, Commissioner Orlean, you continue to refer to a deficit is because you asked at a meeting if the salaries for every employee of the Housing Authority were paid by the Housing Authority alone, could we afford to do that?
Can I stop you right there?
No, let him finish. Let him finish, Commissioner. Let him finish.
Not until I'm finished.
Commissioner Orlean, let him finish.
I made no mention of salaries. I made no mention of
Commissioner,
salaries.
okay, so Commissioner
Joe, you gotta
Orlean.
mute her, Joe.
I made no
Joe,
mention of
mute her.
salaries.
Okay, go ahead,
Let
Peter.
the
I'm sorry.
account- let the account finish.
yeah.
Everyone will have a chance. Let
But-
Mr. Polcari finish.
Let me use a different word. What you asked was if the Housing Authority paid all of the expenses that pertain only to the Housing Authority, would they be able to fund that? My answer to you was no, because the entire staff, as you learned at the very first meeting you attended, the entire staff is employees of the housing authority. As part of that management agreement, the housing authority gets reimbursed for the employees that are put into the other buildings to work. So the short answer is, if you're asking if the housing authority in and of itself could pay for all of its normal operating expenses, plus the salaries of every employee it has, all by itself, the answer is no. However, if you take into account the money that we receive from the other buildings, there is enough funding there to cover that. There is not a 1.2 million or $2 million deficit anywhere. I think there was misunderstanding with the way the question was asked, and I answered the simple question as to whether the housing authority all by itself could cover all of those expenses, including the salaries.
Can I respond?
No, let him finish.
Go ahead. And since the salaries all by themselves could not be paid by the housing authority alone, my answer to your question was no. And then you asked how much is allocated to the other programs. And I think at that point, I indicated to you between the salaries and benefits and other expenses, it was roughly $1.2 million. The way I see it, you converted that into the housing authority runs a deficit of $1.2 million. And what I'm telling you is that that is not factually correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Peter. Commissioner Arlene.
Okay. Can I just say
that's
something?
perfectly clear. Let's take our vote here, please, because we have other topics to do.
Okay.
Let's take the vote, please.
We have a first and we have a second. Ann, please call roll.
Okay, Chairman Infante,
Yes.
Vice Chair Humphrey,
Yes.
Mr. Lukenda,
No.
Commissioner Motlos,
Yes.
Commissioner Orlean,
Yes.
Commissioner Petkoff,
This is only because we're deferring this to another meeting.
no, this is I don't get a
Not tonight.
until when they decide.
Yeah, well, I'll say yes because we're gonna do it at another time.
Commissioner Minutza,
No.
You ready to vote? Sorry,
can't already vote, I just pulled it.
sorry,
Oh, no problem. Okay, I would like to address the board now. You've had your say. You feel you're doing the right thing. I respect your wishes. I am not here to get involved in all the nonsense and how you have miscommunicated and riled up all of my employees. I do not appreciate it at all. I herewith am resigning. I will retire effective the 1st of October and expect everything that's due me under my present contract be paid to me.
That's your right, Ann.
Well, that's what I'm gonna do, Joe.
Okay.
Okay, now, we can go on to financial. And with that, I have a problem, okay? I have 2 part-time employees. One's name is Callahan, one's name is Costre. They went before, Joe Manfredi the other day. And, they talked about their comp time that they had before the contract was drawn up, the new contract. And they were told that whatever they had at the time the new contract was drawn, they are entitled to, okay? Which was comp time that they could be paid for right away. I would have to approve it, I would have to send it to Gary for payment. But they were also told that their earned sick days, which is 58.75 for Callahan and 7.6 for Costre, okay, could be paid for, but they can't be paid for. They cannot be paid for those days until when they retire. I need from the board, I need a resolution stating that this is in fact the case.
Joe, you want to explain? Because I wasn't at the meeting. Joe Manfredi was.
Well,
I think we
wait,
talked briefly.
the director is accurately, with one thing, I didn't say they could be paid because I'm not a decision maker, but Ann completely accurately just identified the personnel policy in terms of what the rights are under under the 2017 policy, which controls the situation. We can't really discuss the terms of an employee's compensation without a rights notice, but I also don't think this stops what Ann needs to do, because it should just go through the proper chain. I think if Mr. Bulgari and I look at it, we can confirm, I believe, what the director has indicated, and then the matter should be processed administratively.
Okay, in other words, Joe, wait a minute, I'm not talking about their comp time.
No,
Because you
comp
said
time.
they're already, what
Correct.
I'm talking about is they can keep their 58.75 sick days and 76 sick days.
Yes.
As of the end of that contract, and now from here on in, it's 1 hour for every 30 hours worked, or 1 day for every 1.5 weeks they work, and they cannot accumulate more than 40 hours. Is this correct?
That is correct on what the 2023 policy says. And as I've said before to the board and to everyone, any benefit that an employee was notified that they were given, whether they're given it rightly or wrongly, doesn't matter. Once they're notified, they have a legal right to receive that benefit in accordance with the terms of the personnel policy. So we are all in agreement.
Okay, then I need a vote on it.
I don't know, Ann.
No, what are we voting on here? We don't need to vote. That's the
well,
policy. That's the policy.
Right. We don't need the board to vote on that, Ann, because it's not rightfully before them. But as the director, you have that authority. What I think we should do, everyone, is Mr. Bulgari and I will just look at it and confirm by email that the process the director just outlined, so the matter is adequately documented.
Okay, wait a minute. Tom Callahan wants to talk.
She wants a guarantee.
So the issue, just so the Board of Commissioners are aware, is that prior to this new personnel policy, we were not identified as part-time employees in any personnel policy. So in the 2017 personnel policy, we were allowed to accumulate our sick time. Now, in your new personnel policy, we are strictly identified as part-time employees, and it says in that personnel policy that we are only entitled to 40 hours of accumulated sick time. When I addressed the lawyer 2 days ago, my question simply was, do I get to keep my accumulated sick time that I have done over the last 10 years? He did not give me a yes or no answer. He had given me an answer that stated that I should look to get paid for that I should look to be compensated. So I have no problem keeping that sick time. I don't need to be compensated today. I don't intend upon retiring, but I just need an answer from somebody who says, yes, your accumulated sick time will remain at 58 3/4 days, and from here on in, I can accumulate no more than 40 hours. That's all I'm asking for.
40, can I ask a question? 40 additional going forward? So you're stopped at whatever the 50 number is, plus 40 as you accrue them going forward? Is that what you're asking, Tommy?
I'm saying yes. Do I keep that 58 3/4 days that I previously have earned during the last 9.5 years of employment? And from this day forward, I can only accumulate 40 more hours of sick time.
For a total of like 93 and change.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, 40 hours. It's not 40 days, it's 40 hours, which only equals 6 days.
I apologize. I thought you were talking about total hours.
And not a problem. So I'm just trying to get a straight answer. The attorney would not say, yes, I keep that. I'm just wondering what the intention of the board is with my previously earned sick time. Do I get to keep it as a part-timer because?
Yeah, Tommy, Joe Infante. My intention was, and I believe we discussed this among some of the attorneys that you keep what you had. Okay, you're not losing it. You don't have to use it. You don't have to burn it. You're not going to get paid for tomorrow, because I heard from the accountant, somebody came in and signed off on it already. That's not going to happen. When you retire, whether it's tomorrow or 5 years from now, you get paid for your sick time. Nothing's being taken away.
Okay, well, that's what I just needed a definitive answer for that,
Yep.
and now I got one, so thank you
Yep.
very much.
You're welcome. And Joe, question for you. Joe, what was the 2017 sick policy? I believe you said something was in there when we were discussing it the other day.
With regard to vacation or sick? We're talking about sick time here.
Well, yeah, sick time, was it? It said you could accrue as much as, there was no cap on it?
As the director just said, and I believe Mr. Callahan said it, in the 2017 personnel policy, it did not differentiate between part-time and full-time with regard to sick. It simply said employees. My understanding was that Mr. Belcher did a pro rata calculation of that. Vacation was different, but we're talking about sick.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just want to make sure I understand it correctly. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chairman, is that memorialized
All right.
somewhere so that in 3 years, a different board is here and Mr. Callahan has no future issues, as it seems like this only pertains to two specific individuals?
That's why, Commissioner Minutza, that's why I suggested that both Mr. Polcari and I state it in writing to the director, so she has it in her records.
Okay. Yeah, then if you need to, we'll take a vote on it, but from what I'm reading, the personnel policy, that's how I interpreted it. But I mean, if somebody's interpreting something different, we could then take.
Wait, hang on, let me just clarify. Irrespective of what the 2017 personnel policy states, any benefit provided to an employee, you've heard me say this many times, must be honored. And so any accumulated sick time, and I understand, and the practice was to always carry forward sick time, as the chairman said,
Right.
remains.
Right.
So they get their sick time.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a vote so we could get a,
There's no
something
need to
in
take a
writing.
vote.
There's
no need to take a vote. There's no need to take a vote.
Yeah, because we don't usually vote
There
on
is,
one
yes.
employee's benefits. We follow the policy, and I think if Mr. Polcari and I can just confirm it.
You want it in writing, yeah. On
You'll get
record,
it in writing.
take a vote.
we
So
can't.
Joe, you and Peter, take a look at it, put something in writing. You could send it to send it to the executive director. She could disseminate it to all the commissioners and the employees.
Let's take a vote. There's nothing wrong with taking a vote.
Commissioner Kenda, let me stop. If you do this vote, then every employee issue you have to vote on, because you can't treat one employee different from another. So the next time someone comes before us and wants to use sick time, it's all going to come back to the board. And I know the board has had concerns about shifting personnel authority more towards the board than the director. So if we remember, just because the rule is the way you treat one, you must treat all. So if Director Ferguson gets a request tomorrow from someone, she can't do anything until it comes back to the board. And it really isn't not within the board's purview to make individualized personnel decisions. The board, as you know, sets the policy. But I do think the director makes the decision.
This might be a silly question. I have a question. So just about sick time and time owed. If somebody was owed 40 hours or whatever, and then we changed a new personnel policy, but up until we changed that new personnel policy, they were entitled to 40 hours. They still are entitled to that, correct? Moving forward with the new policy that we voted on, it would start from that point moving forward. We're not going to pull that away.
No. Well, here, let me be even more clear. If we're talking about, we're dealing with three things.
Is there a grandfather clause in the new policy?
No, Commissioner, so let me explain. I can clear it up. It's not that complex. What it is I apologize for interrupting you. The policy actually stated in 2017 that any accrued sick time is lost if not used at the end of the year. In 2018, Governor Murphy passed a law changing that and mandated that at a minimum, employees, including part-time employees, must be permitted to earn 40 hours a year. And for part-timers, it's a formula. It's 1 hour for every 30 hours worked. And they have the legal right to carry 40 hours forward. Now, the policy stated what it stated. The law changed. However, I did learn in my meeting the other day that the actual practice at the Housing Authority was to allow all employees to accrue sick time without limitation. And just jumping forward, Commissioner Mutza, that is actually what's in the 2023 policy, just so you know. So nothing will actually change, even though the 17 policy said they forfeited at the end of the year. The practice was to allow to accrue. The 2023 policy says you can accrue without limit. So the simple answer is yes. There is never a case where a personnel policy can be passed in that manner and time that people accrued through practice could be taken away. So the new policy is only prospective. And just to add one more piece to it, when we met the other day between Deputy Director Sanders, myself, the finance director, and the maintenance director, we came up with about 4 or 5 amendments to the policy that need to be presented to the board because it might make it all more efficient. And some of those things may come into play, but that's for a different meeting. I hope that's
real
helpful.
quick, Joe. Yeah, real quick. Yeah, real quick, Joe. So the 2017 policy said that all sick time that wasn't used at the end of the year, it was supposed to be vacated or lost. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. It was passed in 2017, but remember, in 2018, a different law was passed requiring you carry forward 1 year.
2017, was everybody wiped clean, Ann, of sick time?
No,
We never.
So we weren't following the policy back then.
We never lost our sick time.
Right, so, but that was the policy, though, I believe.
No, the policy always said that we had sick time and then we could carry it.
Joe, what's the policy saying, 2017?
We'll read it to you. Hold on a minute.
It doesn't say use or lose, and it doesn't say any, right, it doesn't say.
Right here.
Yeah, this was the old one, though. This is the one that, this is the one that they're going back to.
Right, and it doesn't say anything
So,
there that you lose.
all it says is that you're entitled to 15 days.
At the end of the, Ray, do you have where it says sick leave policy on
Yes.
page, bear with me, read it out
24.
loud. Hang on a minute.
Employees are
Ray.
entitled to 15 days of sick leave per calendar year, except new employees will accrue 1 1/4 sick day for every month worked during the first year of employment. Sick leave is only permitted in situations where the employee is ill and unable to work, or the employee's family member is afflicted with a serious illness. If sick leave is taken because of the employee is ill and unable to work, then a doctor's verification of the illness will be required after 3 or more consecutive absences. If sick leave is taken because of the employee's family member has serious illness, then a doctor's verification of that individual will be required. Prior to returning to work, the employee will be required to be examined by an authority-designated physician for fitness to return to normal duties. An employee will not be permitted to return to work until the verification is received. And then they are talking about upon retirement, an employee shall be entitled to supplementary compensation for unused sick leave, subject to the following limitations. Employees hired prior to May 21st, 2010 shall be granted 1 day of base pay for every 3 days of unused accumulated sick leave, up to a maximum of $25,000. Employees hired after May 21st shall be granted 1 day of base pay for every 3 days of unused accumulated sick leave, up to a maximum of $15,000. If an employee dies during their employment, the authority, then the employee's beneficiary will receive supplementary compensation for the employee's unused sick leave in accordance with the above limitations. If
I
an
don't mean to
employee
interrupt.
is separate,
I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
I don't mean, I apologize. The clause I'm referring to is earlier on, Ray. It says employees are entitled to 15 days of sick leave per year, except new employees will accrue 1 1/4 sick day for every month worked. Any unused 6 days will be forfeited at the end of the year. That's what I was referring to.
where does it say that?
Page 24.
Yeah, it's not, I just read the whole thing.
All right, it's not there on his, it's on yours, okay? That's 2017, let's forget about that now, okay? The attorney, the accountant will review everything that we discussed when it comes to the part-time employees. We cannot discuss specifics. We're not taking a vote on every single employee. And then the executive director will give her final ruling on it. Any other financial matters, Ann?
I don't have any.
Okay, we got the attorney's report.
I don't have a report tonight.
Joe, can I ask you a question? Did you hear anything about the JIF approving?
Yes, public record. The agreement was signed last night, Ann, at the New Jersey Joint Insurance Fund meeting, and I'm awaiting a copy now. I confirmed with Frank Boren, the attorney for the JIF, and he told me it was signed and he should have it over to us momentarily. That's public record, so I can speak about it. That will trigger the duty by Zurich, who previously signed the agreement, now to remit the remaining $9.5 million within 30 days. I expect we will have it sooner since Zurich wants to close the matter out. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Are there any commissioner comments?
None.
I do. You know, I don't know how this board is being run, but it seems the meetings are sporadically, and they're more than once a month that we were scheduled for. Things are being brought up at the last minute. We don't have records. I mean, we're not informed. I feel like you're pushing us under the rug and trying to make us vote for things that we really don't have a good handle on. So
Thank you for your comment.
Yeah, we're being just put it in front of you and vote.
Okay.
So, and I don't like that feeling.
Can I say something?
I'm sorry, no, Commissioner Arlene, let me answer. I'm sorry you feel that way, but certain things have to be addressed, and when they come up, sometimes we get shorter notice than usual. I know you're saying we have more meetings than we had anticipated, but in the beginning, you said you wanted a meeting every month, okay?
Yeah.
And the executive director said, you know, she didn't feel we needed it every month, and if we did, we would have special meetings to answer any kind of concerns or questions.
We're having a meeting.
Which is fine. Then you're saying you want stuff given to you beforehand. The personnel policy, we went on for months, you had it. And it still took you, I don't know how many months to finally give an answer. Then you're saying you want documents, but yet you voted on executive director and deputy director contracts without even seeing them. Okay, that's worth millions of dollars. Okay, then a few years ago, you voted on a budget you didn't even get. The only one that caught it was Commissioner Manutza and said he cannot vote on something he hasn't seen. So I feel like I'm being bullied here because every time we're trying to get something done that's a legitimate cause, you bring up that we're not having enough time. Yet, when we were supposed to sign the audit report last meeting, you tore up the paper and said that you weren't signing it. And every other year, you never had a problem signing it.
Yeah, because I feel bullied. That's exactly
Okay, well, I don't know who you feel bullied from because I feel bullied from you.
So I feel bullied.
Okay, thank you.
You know, but I have another question too. Maybe it's for the attorney. The conflict of interest form that we signed, did every commissioner sign it?
And did you receive every signed copy?
Of the conflict of interest?
I believe all but one signed it.
Signed it or didn't sign it?
No, all but one signed.
The conflict of interest?
One did not sign.
Yes. I believe, Commissioner, 2 meetings ago, the executive director collected most of them. As she said, one is outstanding.
Okay. Shouldn't they all be signed?
Yes.
Okay.
You can't force the person to sign it.
And Joe Manfredi, we never
Yes.
saw those professional contracts either that we voted on. We never saw contracts for the professionals, right?
Mr.
I
Volpe, the director executed them. Mr. Volpe, can you send copies of those? If we don't, do we have Mr. Volpe here?
Yeah,
Mr.
I'm sorry, I
Volpe,
was on mute.
can-
I apologize. If I have the signed contracts, I'd be happy to provide them. Absolutely.
we have it from Mr. Giampaolo and Mr. Polcari.
Okay, Joe, while we're on the professional contracts, what about Pete Carey? You were supposed to draw up the interim thing. He had a contract, okay, but then there was a split there, and the board voted that it was okay, and you were gonna draw it up, and we never got it.
You know, the board indicated and the QPA indicated because he has an existing contract through, I believe, the close of September, that effective October 1st, he will have a new contract.
He will have, okay.
Yeah, the board had already addressed that and the QPA addressed it. And I looked
Yes.
at it. The chairman tasked me to look at it. I want to be clear. And I indicated that based on the fact that there was an existing contract, that would be obviously honored and a new contract would be entered into effective October 1.
Okay.
Joe, I thought the contract originally when it was sent over to Ann, for the accountant.
I think Daryl did send it over, Kathy, actually, but I do believe we might have to change the dates in it. You and I can check offline because he usually sends them all over.
That's what I thought the consensus was that we were just gonna change the dates to October 1 to September
Yes.
30th of next year. Have it signed
Correct,
and be done
correct.
with it.
Yeah, and the contracts were also, I believe, in the actual RFP that Mr. Volpe issued, and then Daryl from my office sent it over, and as the deputy director just indicated, the dates would be changed.
Okay.
Good to go.
Any other commissioner comments?
Say something.
Are there any public comments?
Excuse me, I wanted to say something.
Yeah,
Oh,
Commissioner
I'm sorry.
Marlene.
Okay. All I'm saying is that, I think that as board members, we need transparency. I see a lot of back and forth, unnecessary back and forth. We really don't need that. Because all of us, we have busy lives and we come here. This is like, a volunteer, we're making this sacrifice for the residents of our town. And all I want to make sure, I just want everybody to understand is that I just want to follow the HUD guidelines. And like I said, I'm an educator. I have my license. I just want to make sure I do the right thing because
I'm a nurse, I have my license.
Exactly.
I have no
And obviously for some reason, you've been on the board for a long time and you voted without even seeing a contract. I'm not like that. I want to
All right,
see
listen,
every.
Commissioner
I didn't see
Arlene.
a contract.
Yeah, can we
All right, I'm
stop
not getting
this?
it.
Can we stop?
Okay,
Commissioner
point of
Arlene,
order,
Chairman,
point
point of
of
order, point
order,
of order,
Yourself.
point of
point of
order.
order.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
didn't finish what I had to say. She interrupted me.
No, I know. Go
listened-
ahead, Commissioner Arlene. Commissioner
Yeah,
Arlene, go
I
ahead.
listened
No
to what she
interruptions.
has
Go
to
ahead.
say.
Finish.
It's. I find it interesting that we have people that have been on the board for years. They voted without even reading anything. And they are blaming us because we're asking questions, because we're new, because we want to do the right thing. All we want to do is follow HUD guidelines. We just want to do the right thing. We just want transparency. The false accusation that we're getting from people who have been on the board for years, who never read anything and just blindly voted, and then to accuse us because we're asking questions. I feel bullied because I'm asking questions. I feel intimidated because I'm asking questions. I feel before I vote, I need to know what I'm voting on. It's nothing personal against anyone. But when I found that we are spending over we are charging, the Linden Housing Authority is charging over $1 million to a nonprofit. I think it's wrong. We should all be outraged. Everyone should be outraged. Everyone should be asking questions. This is taxpayers' money, and our taxpayers deserve to have commissioners who are going to look out for them, who are going to fight for them, because I think it's the right thing to do. This is nothing personal. I'm here on behalf of the taxpayers. I'm asking questions. I just want to do the right thing. I have my teaching license. I want to make sure that I vote the way that I'm supposed to vote, you know? And people are making me feel guilty because I'm asking questions. They are saying that they're being bullied when we are being bullied for asking questions, because we are being bullied for not voting blindly. I do not want to vote blindly. I need to know the facts. And I am concerned with the fact that we have directed the housing authority to give information to Jerry so that he can do his job. But I'm concerned about the delay. It's nonsense. Let's fight for the taxpayer. Let's have transparency. Let's continue to ask questions so that we continue to do the right thing. You know, I have nothing against anybody, but one thing I have to do, I have to protect myself. I have to do the right thing. If I smell that something is wrong, I will not support it. It's nothing personal against anybody. I just want to make sure everybody understand that. It's nothing personal. I just think it's an injustice to charge a nonprofit over $1 million to manage them. I think it's an injustice. I think it's an outrageous, and I don't understand why nobody else feel the same way as I do. They are claiming that they are being bullied when we are being bullied for asking questions, for demanding transparency. That's all I have to say, and I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you.
And-
Any public comments?
Danny, I have a question to Danny. Did you?
No, we're
see
not
the
asking each other questions here, Commissioner. If you have a comment, you can make a comment.
Okay, I think we voted on the professional contract. We're really not seeing it just recently. Is that correct?
No, you were given a full presentation by the qualified purchasing agent on the entire matter. And I believe Eni sent out, my recollection is, because I only worked obviously on accounting and auditing, you were sent a full package on everything. It was
we
stored by
were
a
sent a
committee.
full
You got a full
package.
package.
Contracts are not included in that full package.
I never
The
received
contracts
one.
were in the RFPs, and usually what the board approves is the data from the QPA. The contracts were, if I recall correctly, from the QPA, what he sent out, all contracts were in there, because we had to get Mr. Giampola's done immediately because we had a deadline with the audit. So there were substantial packages sent to the board because I reviewed the accounting and auditing responses. I mean, Mr. Volpe can speak to it.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, I have to go back and check the files. Listen, I have multiple clients throughout the state. I'm in South Jersey tonight. I just left another board meeting an hour before this one. I don't have your file in front of me. I'm in a hotel room, but tomorrow when I'm back at my office, I will certainly look at it and find out. But my recollection is that those packages were circulated. That's my recollection.
They were.
Okay, and Joe, I want to say to Commissioner Orlean, okay? My board, and all my boards up until this board, okay, have always had as their attorney Joe Manfredi. He has never advised them to do X, Y, or Z the way he's advising you. So don't go blaming the board. How come all of a sudden Joe Manfredi is giving you all this information, but kept it a secret from my other boards? That's my question.
Thank you for your comment, Director. Any comments from the public?
Yes, Charlie Cradville, can you hear me?
Hey, Charlie, how are you? Good to hear you again.
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
So I have a few questions. I'm asking on behalf of New Brunswick Today, community newspaper based in New Brunswick. I'm obviously sympathetic to the desire to get, public records swiftly and transparently. Also sympathetic for those who feel bullied for asking questions. I wanted to follow up on some questions I asked at your May meeting. You approved a contract with Mr. Manfredi at that meeting with no not to exceed limit. And, you know, I wanted to ask if that's allowed and if that's, you know, a best practice considering the financial situation of the authority.
I'll answer that for you. This is Ian Ferguson, the executive director. When Mr. Manfredi sent in his original quote, he did not have an amount to exceed. When you had questioned it and other people had questioned it, then he decided he's going to put in X amount of dollars, and I refused to let him do it because his original quote was his original quote. You don't change it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Well,
Joe, you want to say something, Joe?
I just want to help Mr. Cradwell. Mr. Volpe can speak to it. I requested a not to exceed. The RFP did not require one. I requested the director, she said, to please place a not to exceed in the contract. I spoke to the accountant. He did a projection and came up with a proposed not to exceed, but the director rejected it. And I confirmed that, Ann, in writing to you, so you have a good record that I asked for it, but you said no. That's the answer, as the director gave it.
No,
Just a
that's
supplement.
because your original one didn't have it in it, and then you wanted to add it in it once the reporter started questioning it.
No,
And just
Mr.
to,
Volpe.
and just to
Hold
supplement.
on, hold on here.
One
Hold
at a
on, hold
time,
on.
please. One at a time.
Jerry, you want to weigh in on this as far as how it works with procurement?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah,
All right. So the one thing has nothing to do with the other. They're two separate issues. Yes, the
Right.
proposal came in with his hourly rates, but in the normal course of events at the majority of the housing authorities that I represent, the board is always requested a not to exceed amount because that has to do with budgeting. And you would like to have an idea without giving my word, I won't use it, I'm using it generically. Don't want to give a blank check to your professionals that they could just bill you at hourly rates without a cap. So you look generally to your prior years, you look to see what is being, what is a normal range. As a matter of fact, when I was interviewing other professionals and when I did these solicitations for the Linden Housing Authority, I had to be assured that the rates and the numbers were reasonable. And I had discussions with all of our professionals, all of them. And from my perspective, it's a good business practice to have a not to exceed amount. It has nothing to do with the solicitation. It's separate and apart. It has to do exclusively with budgeting, and it's to protect the board's interests so they don't expend, and you have an idea of what you're going to cap out the legal fees, in this instance, the legal fees at. Because if you do exceed it for some unknown reason, you then come back to the board and say, we need to make a contract modification if you're agreeable to it. And the board has control over it. So that was the reasoning. They're two separate issues. But again, the executive director denied the request, and that's fine. It's been denied. But normally I see not to exceed in contracts.
Thank you, Jerry. Charlie, Joe Infante. Yeah, that was my mistake back when you asked the question, because the RFP just asked for an hourly rate. Then the board had asked the QPA was it fair and reasonable. And when you asked, I said no, there was no amount because we didn't ask for that in the RFP. But I know from doing contracts that you speak with the accountant, which we did, and say, hey, we got to budget something for it. So we put that in there. So then the management monitors the contract to make sure it's not open-ended. Even though he's charging X amount per hour, it's not going to be up to $20 million. We have to have a not to exceed amount. So that was my fault, Charlie. I misunderstood. Any other questions, Charlie?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you everyone for sharing on this important question. I know that Mr. Manfredi, through his firm, has represented the authority since at least 2004, and to confirm that he's never had a written contract, or I requested it on May 3rd, right? There was never a written contract, and why was that?
He never had a written contract. Okay.
asking why not.
I don't know why not.
All right.
I believe we did early on. It's over 20 years, so my records don't reflect that. We
Okay.
did have a resolution of the board and approvals by the board, obviously of all invoices, but I don't want to speak on my own. I don't want to speak on my own matters.
No, yeah, that's okay, Joe. This is public. If we can answer some, we'll answer them the best we can, but it's public comments, not question and answer. But Charlie, anything else?
Yeah, well, I guess, not to ask another question, but I do understand.
Well, you can ask in Oprah. You can ask certain things in Oprah, Charlie, and we'll make sure staff gets that to you.
Thanks. I'm glad you brought that up because, yeah, my May 3rd Oprah request, which is available on oprahmachine.com, is, predated the new contract. And, I inquired and ultimately figured out that there was going to be a special meeting. I came, spoke at the special meeting and had some questions then and didn't quite get the answers until later. But now I understand that that contract was approved that day. I guess, where I'm going with this is, was it just a coincidence that the contract was approved at a special meeting called in May, or was it, was my Oprah request the reason that a contract was prepared and approved in May?
I'll jump in if I might. I'm the new QPA for the Linden Housing Authority, and when we solicited for any of our goods, services, et cetera, typically there's a contract that's generated that's a part of the procurement file. And this thing was solicited and contracts were entered into.
I also requested, wait, can I answer, Mr. Credible? I also requested the board to issue an RFP a year ago, back in June. The board did pass a resolution directing that professional service RFPs be issued, and it established a committee. However, the problem was we did not have a QPA at the time. I believe that was back in September of last year. I previously requested it prior June, and the resolution was issued, but without a QPA, obviously I can't handle my own procurement, nor would I. And so Mr. Volpe was tasked as one of his first items to handle professional service RFPs, which were done for auditing, accounting, engineering, and legal.
Thank you, Joe. Anything else, Charlie?
Yeah, I'll just wrap up with a comment and might prompt some discussion here. But, given the financial situation the authority finds itself in, I was hoping to learn a little more about the allusions to a deficit, and I wanted to understand, is that accurate to say there's $1 million plus deficit? And I also wanted to hear more about the charging of $1 million to a nonprofit. And I want to really better understand. I'm truly interested in understanding the arrangement with these two nonprofits. And it's my understanding you had a board meeting in June, and then immediately afterward held board meetings that were not open to the public for these two nonprofits. And so I want to understand the relationship between your board and these two other entities. And if funds are changing hands between the entities, I want to know, historically how that relationship has gone. And it seemed some folks on the board had very strong feelings about this notion of charging $1 million to a nonprofit, or that there being some kind of deficit of $1 million or so. So I just want to, please set the record straight for me so I can understand. And I will just conclude with a note that the folks at the authority have been very good about responding to my May 3rd Oprah request, and so I want to thank them for it. And I did, review the records that were provided, and it was, what I was looking for, and I was able to get a full ledger of all the bills for Manfredi and Palicchio, and I see that the total did come to $747,521.84, and based on the bills from this year, it looks like it's on pace to be a big year, if not the biggest year, for spending on their services. So I'd want to understand, the role that they play and why so much is being spent on legal bills, and if that's one of the big expenses, why wasn't again, getting back to the original.
Charlie, that's a 20-year period. Charlie, is that a 20-year period for 799? Is that what it is?
747 since.
Hang on, bear with me a minute. So if we say, what was the number? Bear with me.
747,521.84.
So you divide that by 20, right? 747,
Sure.
747, what was it? I got it, 747, let's do that.
521.
$37,350 a year is the average.
Okay. Correct. And this year, based on the bills I've seen, on pace for 127,982. I don't know if we'll get there, but
Charlie, just to sum it up, and Chairman, and I heard you say about the Oprah, and was it a coincidence? And obviously the QPA weighed in, but I had no idea about any Oprah. I know you deal with the office, Ann and Kathy, and if you're saying you're okay with everything with Oprah, I'm fine with it. But I did not talk to Ann or Kathy about any Oprah when we determined that when the meeting was going to be. And I understand that the attorney bills are higher this year, and myself and the executive director spoke about this because we're concerned with all bills. And I remember saying to the executive director, is there something that we're doing, the board, when we're tasking the attorney to do something and or the accountant, and is there something there that you disagree with that doesn't need to be done? The executive director agreed with me, and we both said, no, it needs to be done, but it's a lot right now. And we have new board members, as you see or hear, and they don't always agree, and the new board members are asking more questions and finding out certain things that they believe should be done, and the executive director and myself agree they should be done. It seems it's happening right away, but that's when we decided to do it, to answer your question.
And do the nonprofits also pay the same law firm?
Yes, we do. And you said about the meetings in June, we didn't have 2 meetings immediately after, unless you mean exactly that same day. We typically schedule all 3 meetings for the executive director and staff, so they don't have to stay multiple nights. Yeah. And so they're always usually the same night, and they're all open to the public.
Okay.
Mr. Cradivel, I perform the work I'm tasked. Mr. Cradivel, I'm performing the work I'm tasked to do. Every agency is different. I respond to the needs of the board. We have a QPA now, which is very positive because then I don't handle any procurement. The QPA handles it.
All right.
Well, I would appreciate it.
Okay, Charlie, you had a question about the meetings, Charlie?
Yeah, no, I'm pleased to hear the meetings will be open to the public. I might try to attend one day, but yeah, I just wanted some more intelligence on the relationship between the nonprofits and what is this notion of charging the nonprofit. Is the nonprofit filling in the budget gap at the housing authority, and if so, is that a normal thing or is that a new thing?
Management agreement, didn't they see that?
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Charlie. Come to the meetings. Maybe Kathy, make sure Charlie gets notification of our next in-person meeting.
Great.
And then we could even sit down with Charlie then. Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate it. Any other comments, public?
Yeah, hold on, we gotta.
One more.
Comments, Ann?
Hold on, we have someone.
I just want to ask the question, with Ms. Ferguson retiring, leaving.
Who's speaking? Can we have a name?
Barbara Lewis.
Yeah,
Got it? Barbara Lewis.
Barbara Lewis? Okay, Barbara, go ahead.
I would like to know, with Ms. Ferguson leaving, is there someone in mind who's going to come in and do the job that she's been doing all of these years?
Well, considering she told us a few minutes ago, no, and I could speak for all the board. We thought Ann would be with us for a longer time. So to answer your question, no. Any other comments?
Knows as much as she does, as long as she's been here.
Thank you for your comments. No other comments, Ann?
I have no more public here.
Okay. Need a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Chairperson Infante?
Yes.
Oh. Vice Chair Humphrey?
Yes.
Commissioner Lukenda? Yes. Commissioner Motlos,
Yes.
Commissioner Orlean,
Yes.
Commissioner Petkoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuzza.
Yes.
Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Good night. Night.
Night.
Thanks, good night.